market. We are so fortunate to have 3 to 4 different farmers markets in our city, but this is one of my favorites. It's close to our home and it has a variety of different vendors, so everything from fresh produce and fruit to tea to creative arts and hats and earrings and all sorts of things. So I'm ready to jump in and go find ourselves some fun finds and things we can work with this week.
So these are usually the items I tend to pick up when I go to the farmer's market. I usually buy a pizza crust because they have the best pizza crusts at one of the local vendors. They have artisan style, a plethora of varieties. They come in 2 different sizes and 2 different thickness, like thin and thick. And this one's a thin one and it's Asiago herb. And I just love that every time I can go, I can get a different one and end up with a pizza that has a little bit of variety, so it's not the same all the time. Then we usually get something from the cheese vendor from Terrell Creek Farm. I love their cheese. It just has a fresher taste, a more balanced flavor. When I get feta or goat cheese, they're not as strong as you get in the store, so I love them. I'm usually going to get something that's in season for the produce, whether that's zucchinis or peppers or some green onions. And I love the new vendor I've discovered, which has these beautiful sourdough breads, and they also have a ton of variety. They're usually the things I get. Also, we love our vendor that has pesto. That's another thing we usually get, but this is typical what I will come home with on a Saturday afternoon after my visit to the farmer's market. And speaking of that pesto, let's jump into this recipe where we use that pizza crust and that lemon basil pesto, which is one of our favorites. My husband loves it. I just had some fresh mozzarella that I purchased, not from the farmer's market, but we did have a fresh mozzarella that we purchased from the store, and just went ahead and put those slices directly on that pesto. I did have some fresh spinach that I wilted down in the microwave for about 30 seconds with some garlic, put that on the pizza, and then added more cheese and Italian blend here, just put that on top. And now it's ready for our air fryer, which this is my Emerald Lagasse air fryer, and because it's larger, I usually make my pizza in this, which is funny. It's the only thing I use it for because my Pampered Chef air fryer is the ultimate. And so our pizza is done. It looks so good, the melted cheese and everything, and to top it off, some balsamic drizzle on top. On another Saturday, I hit up my farmer's market and I also went to the local grocery store and a local boutique with very specific items in mind. So first I went to the farmer's market and I wanted 3 things. I wanted these peaches, which were in season and they look great. I can't wait to use them. I found our favorite lemon pesto from Vince's, and so I made sure I grabbed 2 jars this time to have plenty on hand. And then of course some goat cheese from Terrell Creek Farm. So that is perfect. I went to a local boutique. It's called The Pine. It's one of my favorite little stores. They have all of these creative things, local artisan stuff, and like this reusable cloth that I will use instead of paper towels, and then this honey lemon spread, which I feel like is in the theme with the peaches and the cheese, and I can't wait to use it in an appetizer. And then the main reason why I went to the boutique, I had a gift certificate and I knew I wanted to get my favorite yoga pants. They carry these yoga pants that are the softest fabric and they have pockets. I don't know about you, but I cannot wear pants anymore if they don't have pockets. I always have to have my device in a pocket, so I'm all about the pockets. And then my local grocery store, I was purposely looking for this item. It's the bruschetta with garlic. I love these when I'm making crostinis and I'm making bite-sized appetizers. These are the perfect cracker. They have that perfect texture, crunchy but yet soft. And then also the perfect thing, I don't know yet, I'm going to check these out, these gourmet flavored pretzel snacks. I just eyed them. They had like 5 different varieties, but white wine and pretzels and bites, yes, okay. I went with an empty stomach and that's why I hit the hot food bar. Got me some noodles and then some sushi, which I love. This is everything we got. It's a short little trip, but it's going to be perfect for what we're going to whip up. So this next farmer's market inspired recipe is going to be our peach crostinis, and we're going to start with a cup of ricotta cheese. I just put it in a mixing bowl, and here is that lemon honey spread. I'm going to add about half of the jar, so maybe about a tablespoon and a half, and I'm just going to add that for taste. It did call for honey, but with that extra lemon flavor, I think it's going to be so good. Mix that all together, and then I'm going to set that aside, and I have my crackers, and just so you know, they are pretty true to size of what they are on the bag. I thought they might be a little bigger though, so I am wondering if they're going to be okay. And so that made me think, I'm going to make this two ways. I think I'm going to serve it as a crostini bite and also as a dip. So this is my prosciutto. I'm chopping it up in a coarse chop, and it's just like bacon but a lot less fat. So I'm going to saute that in a pan until it's nice and crisp, and that's what I'm going for, that nice little crunch that it will have for our appetizer. And now I'm preparing the peaches. I am cutting it into a fine dice because I want it to be the comparable size to our crostini, so it does have to be tiny. And then I also want every bite of the dip to have plenty of peaches in it when you go for a taste. So that is why I'm getting it in a fine dice. I do only need one peach for this recipe for both the appetizers because it's going to be just for my family. I'm slicing up the basil in a chiffonade, making sure I have great ribbons. And now I add my ricotta cheese to a crostini. I'm adding the peaches on top. I'm putting a little bit of the prosciutto for the crunch, and now the top with balsamic glaze, which is going to be the perfect balance. I am going to add my little basil on top for the color, and now you have the perfect balance of color, flavors, and textures with this one bite. That's what we're going for. I decided instead of doing the balsamic on each individually, I was going to go for the effect. I love how this feels doing it and how it ends up when you're done. The perfect drizzle, especially on a white plate, just screams for presentation. It looks so good. I know I will be doing this again to entertain, because this is perfect if you're entertaining with guests and want to impress at a party. That is perfect. Now we're on to chopping up the rest of our peaches and putting it directly into the ricotta cheese as we're making our dip. We'll go ahead and combine that. Remember, I want plenty of peaches in here, so I'm putting them all in, and then I'm even going to put a bunch on top for color and also to make sure every bite has that little bit of bits of peaches. And then I'm also going to put on top, I have the remaining prosciutto, so those are the crunch. I'm going to actually dice these up a little bit more. I want to get them really fine to be able to have that crunch and those bits. So I'm going to sprinkle those on top, and then the rest of my basil, I'll put that on. And here we go again with the drizzle of the balsamic glaze. I like how it kind of goes up the sides even. It just kind of has a messy but cool effect. Very artsy looking, and that is all ready to be served. I'm going to go ahead and put my crackers on both sides, and I am ready to show you here. Looks so good. It is great. This is a perfect appetizer to impress guests because it presents so well. Another weekend means another trip to our local farmers market. Okay, this is what we ended up getting from the farmer's market. So I did go ahead and get the classic sourdough from the Vanderwall Homestead Farm and Bakery. I just went with the classic version of their sourdough. They have many varieties and flavors, but I wanted the other ingredients to shine instead of the flavor from the sourdough, so just went with the classic. And speaking of flavors, I did get these fresh oyster mushrooms. So they specialize in, of course, mushrooms, and they had two varieties. They had these white oyster, and then they had the golden oyster, and I went with these because they're more of a mild flavor that goes more like whenever you're going to use white mushrooms. So this was the variety I was looking for, so they're perfect. And then I went to the Terrell Creek Farm little kiosk, and I asked them what would go really good probably with this sourdough and these mushrooms, and this is what they came up with. They recommended the Dude, which is a brie variation, and I had a sample and it was so good. It's going to be perfect melted on there.
some fresh thyme. It's gonna be so good. So I scored on these 3 ingredients. Then of course I had to have breakfast, so I got a chocolate croissant. I wish you could understand the size of this. I mean, well, let's give you a size comparison. This is the biggest chocolate croissant I think I've ever seen. It's taller than my grande size here of coffee. I got an iced coffee, and this was so good, a salted caramel iced coffee, and this chocolate croissant, I can't wait to dig into that. They gave it to me nice and warm right out of the oven. So this is what we're gonna work with and get going. I am starting by preparing my herbs. I have fresh parsley from my garden, and I also have thyme. I love when you can just zip through the thyme leaves and it comes right off. It's so satisfying. I'm going to go ahead and get these into a coarse chop, maybe even a fine chop, to have very little bits, and I'm going to put those to the side, and then I'm going to start working on my mushrooms. I'm going to do just kind of a coarse chop on those. I did ask if I could use every part of it, and they said, yep, you can use every part of this mushroom. I just maybe remove the very bottom if that was a little hard, but otherwise I was able to use every bit. I just kind of coarse chopped them all, and then I'm going to drizzle a little bit of avocado oil into my pan, and I'm going to go ahead and clean my cutting board off so I can prepare the bread. But I'm going to dump the mushrooms on into that oil on medium heat. And now I'm just going to slice my sourdough bread, just like sandwiches, because that's what I'm going to make here. And as I was preparing the mushrooms, I started thinking to myself, I think I'll go ahead and do this 2 ways. I'm going to make the sandwich, one in the air fryer. So that's what I'm doing, is putting the butter on the bread, salted butter. I'm adding some salt and my herbs now into the mushrooms, a little bit more avocado oil to help simmer those. And now I'm going to work on getting my bread into the air fryer so it gets a little toasted. I'm going to remove my mushrooms into a bowl here, and then I'm going to add my salted buttered bread directly into that pan, put the heat on again, and I'm going to get a nice toast on both sides. So now I'll add my sautéed mushrooms, and now for the main ingredient, that cheese. I did cut the rind off just one side so the rest would hold together, because as you know, brie cheese, if you let it get to room temperature, it does start to melt. So I have that crispy side of my sandwich. I'm doing the other side, and now I have such a nice grill on there, and I already added the cheese on top of those mushrooms and melted it through. Cannot wait to dig into that. While those are cooking in the air fryer, I'm going to cut our sandwich in half, and look at this. It's melted and looks just as good as the first. I love how the herbs are coming through with the little green. I just can't resist. I have got to take a bite of this. And wow, this sandwich is so delectable. The combination of the flavors with the mushrooms and the herbs and the cheese, it is so good. But you know what's going to take it over the top? That balsamic glaze. I'm just going to do a drizzle because a little can go a long way. But I'm thinking about this could also be a great appetizer, and I would take that glaze and drizzle it on top, just like I did with the crostini. And this is so good. Brie and balsamic go so well together. Such a balanced sandwich. And now the ones in the air fryer are all done. The cheese is nice and melted on top of those mushrooms. I'm going to leave these open faced. I think they just present better and look so good. But for taste, my family and I did prefer the sandwich over the air fry. And I think it's because the bread had the perfect texture after being pan fried. But both of them, so good. This is definitely an easy, elevated sandwich to make. It is so impressive. Your guests, your family will love this. I hope you were inspired by these recipes made from the farmer's market ingredients. Be sure to like and subscribe, and also catch these other videos that have similar recipes.